Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has been the place to shop for your industrial needs for over 20 years. Carrying the tools you need to get the job done from the brands you can trust, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools has you covered. Brands like Milwaukee Tool, established in 1924 and on display in our Milwaukee Red Zone, the largest red zone in Winnipeg. With construction workers and tradespeople in mind, Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools is your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. So come on down to our Winnipeg store location today, located on 1557 King Edward Street in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And good afternoon, Manitoba Female U18 AAA Hockey League fans, into the 2025 MFHL Playoff Special on your home for MFHL Hockey here on GShow Productions on GShow.ca. I'm your host, Graham the GShow Forsyth. We're brought to you by Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools, Terrico, Ken Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, as well as goaltenders. I got a hat on for this one. Horseshoe, my favorite team in the NFL, the Indianapolis Colts. You could call it a rally cap, and the horseshoe for good luck in terms of the final 8 teams that remain in the MFHL, as we'll take you through how the playoffs have started. I guess the end of the regular season, since they counted regular season points towards the 8 versus 9 best of 3 MFHL playoffs play-in, which first ever time in the league's history they've done this, at least from when I've covered the league. And yeah, I mean, it didn't disappoint in terms of going the distance. It went the distance to 3 games in favor of the Interlake Lightning. Elise Denbo, goaltender for the Central Plains Capitals, has played her final game in a Capitals jersey. Last year's goaltender of the year stole game 1, making 55 saves in that 1-0 shutout. But yeah, Interlake never trailed after game 1 in that 1-0 loss. They outscored Central Plains 7-1 in games 2 and 3 combined, and held a heavy shot advantage over them, putting up over 90 shots at 94 against Central Plains, en route to making it into the playoffs. We'll show you the bracket in just a moment here, but yeah, this is how the final standings end out playing out in the MFHL. We didn't end up counting the wins, the points from the play-in matchups, because we're counting them as playoff matchups. I don't care what anyone says. Interlake was the favorite in that 8 versus 9 series against Central Plains. As you can see, they're finishing with 1 more point and 1 more win than the Capitals. But the playoff matchups, in terms of what they're going to be looking like, are officially set as we try to get you to the bracket. No, those are going to be some team outlooks that we're going to get into later on in this show. But yeah, it's officially set as the Eastman Selects will be taking on the Interlake Lightning. Eastman swept the season series. The Avros are the only other team in the first round matchups that swept their season series against their opponent in the Westman Wildcats. The only season series that ended up being tied out of these matchups was the Winnipeg Ice and Pembina Valley Hawks. Winnipeg as well, finishing off the regular season subpar for their standards, coming off of a female world sports school challenge championship as they went 1-2 in the final weekend of play, but bounced back with a strong victory against the Brandon Wheat Kings to finish off their season 6-1. But yeah, in terms of how the standings shape out, Eastman, the Selects, for the first time in their franchise history, they finish in first place. Unbelievable season defensively, historic, as, yeah, from what I've seen, not many teams have been able to do what the Eastman Selects have done, and they'll be looking to carry in that strong play into the playoffs. Here are the points leaders and goaltending leaders as we come to a close, as the season has concluded at this point, as Rio Pierre not only finishing as the points leader, but as well as the goals and assist leaders, taking home the Triple Crown. Congratulations to the second-year forward, who broke the goals record currently held by Nora Collins in 2021-2022 when she put up 37 goals, Rio putting up 39. Rio breaking the single season points record as well at 77, previously the record being 56. Congratulations to rookie goaltender Isabelle Labossiere and to Avro's goaltender in Adriana Almeida on finishing with the most wins in the league this season. Those stats powered by McCann Fasteners and Tools, your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs in the province of Manitoba. With store locations in Brandon and Winnipeg, be sure to check them out today. Before we get any further into this playoff special, which, by the way, coming up, we're going to be taking you through who our award winners are, what our predictions are for that, as they'll be announced after the season. But we're going to get into each first round matchup, as playoffs will be starting this Tuesday. I'm going to give my prediction on who I think ends up going all the way and winning this year's MFHL Championship. Will it be the Winnipeg Ice three-peating? Will it be the Winnipeg Avros who end up winning their first championship in franchise history? Will the Eastman Selects end up completing what's been a historic season for them and taking home their second championship in MFHL history, or will it be one of these other 8 teams? Find out what we think next coming up here, but before we do that, we're going to send it to some highlights from the final weekend of regular season action in the MFHL. So we're going to be showing you all 3 games throughout this matchup spaced out. This first one was first place on the line between the Eastman Selects and Winnipeg Avros last Friday, as it did not disappoint. Playoff hockey, that's what the atmosphere felt like, and why wouldn't it have felt like that, since playoffs were coming up very shortly from when that matchup took place. Enjoy that one, and coming up we're going to get into our award predictions, as well as taking a look at the first half of the 4 quarterfinal matchups coming up here on the MFHL 2025 playoff special on your home of MFHL hockey on GShow Productions.
And live from Niverville, Manitoba, on GShow Productions on GShow.ca, it's a Friday night presentation of MFHL Game Day here on your home for MFHL Hockey. I'm your host and play-by-play commentator for tonight's action, Graham the GShow Forsyth. We're brought to you by McCann Fasteners and Tools, Ken Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Terrico, and Goaltenders. Down below the goal line now. Behind the net, occupied by Almeida, banks it up the boards up to the point of Vader. He go back to Scott Cook. Nice pass. Gets to Maya Grenier, who's denied by Almeida. Another save by number 35. Now it's behind her. No, behind the net. And it's up to Chloe Carrier, but she fans on the shot there. This picked up by Beavis, but she has her pocket picked. This onto the stick of Rio Pierre. She's able to angle pass. What a move by number 9 on the back end. Oh, loses it on the forehand, as she was named an all-star in the Female World Sports School Challenge. What a save by Labossiere, sticking out that right pad, as this ends up towards the close sports to our broadcast angle. Wozni knocks Beavis to the ice. That turned aside by Labossiere. Another save made. This played up to Chloe Carrier. Now back across to Isabella Carrier, denied by Almeida. top 3, maybe top 5 at the least. And Delaney, here we go! Oh, bar out she goes! So close to opening up the score, and thought that might have hit the inside of the bar, but it didn't. As whacking away is Isabelle Labossiere. That tipped in, scores! It's the Eastman Selects who open up the scoring here tonight on home ice. As it's a great return to the lineup for Maya Grenier. She's the one who redirects it home. Sends it to the net, paddling that to the end boards was Almeida. Losing her balance and on her stomach right now. A short read to the low slot. Grenier looking for a second. Whacks away at a rebound, but turned away by Almeida to take that away from Heidinger. But Heidinger able to get it back and squeezes by the Avers defense. Sent towards the net. Loose puck there, denying Kennedy Carey on the doorstep was Almeida. Furthest away from our broadcast angle, Eastman able to get it back. That shot turned aside by Almeida with 12 seconds remaining on the Eastman girl advantage. Back up to Haas. That shot wide of the net. Oh, almost off of Almeida. Inbound scores. Is that Maya Grenier again? I believe it is. As number 9 strikes twice here, this time on the Eastman power play. Is this? It will be held in the Avers zone by Callie Remler at the point to Scott Cook in the slot, turned aside by the pad of Almeida. It got it to Grenier, who played it to the slot, but that pass misfired. It's worked up by the Avers now. Pierre with the step, dangling in, trying to tug backhand, but Labossiere denying with that left pad. Picked up by Dixon, plays it to the point as Eastman gets the cycle going. Tipped in, scores! Grenier completes the hat trick as Eastman goes up 3-0. What a moment for number 9 in a return to the lineup. And as this game's gone along, so how do you find another gear in their game? That's what the Avers are searching for. Another good deflection in front for the Selects, denied by Almeida. Beavis now goes down low below the goal line in the Avro zone. Reverses this down to Isabella Carey. Tries going to the point, but that pass to Hawes got deflected in front, scores! It's Caitlin Schroeder rewarded for her hard work tonight with a redirection on the power play into the back of the net to beat Adriana Almeida. As this to Scott Cook, plays that to the slot, into the feet of Heidinger, whacks away at it, another whack turned aside by Almeida, back into the slot now, to the point to Chloe Carey, her shot through, rebound into the backboards, that turned aside by Almeida again. Winnipeg, the Avers looking to bounce back tomorrow by the looks of it. So they'll be going into the loss column, maybe in this one, still some time left as Speechley powers away through, denied by Labossiere. Trying to get a favorable bounce, but the Selects able to get a stick in the lane. Picked up by the Avers, tipped on that rebound there, but nice job by Lexi Remillard to get a stick in the grill of Liberty Amy. But the Selects sure know how to frustrate this offensive juggernaut in the Winnipeg Avers. 2 shutouts against them this season to win the season 3-1. It's the top offensive team in the league shut down tonight. A signature win from the Eastman Selects.
Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. And welcome back to this edition of the MFHL podcast. Just showed you highlights from Avros and Selects from 2 Fridays ago. Last Friday, I guess. Since, this past Friday, it was the Interlake Lightning who punched their ticket into the playoffs this year in the MFHL. Didn't have a chance to broadcast that series. We're hoping to broadcast away games for Interlake in the upcoming first round series that they'll be playing in against the Eastman Selects. As there's a bit of complications with us broadcasting home games that are out of our control. So unfortunately, we won't be carrying any Eastman home games for the first round. If they are able to advance into the semifinals, and however far Eastman ends up making it, we can't wait to broadcast home games there. Excited if we're able to broadcast in Warren, as Game 2 is going to be going on Saturday between Eastman and Interlake in Game 2 of that series at 2:30 p.m. in Warren, Manitoba. So fingers crossed that we're able to get the ability, the okay to broadcast in that rink, given that the Wi-Fi would hold up for us. But taking a look at the points leaders once again, Rio Pierre, what a fantastic year for the second year forward, and you start to wonder what she has in store for the playoffs coming up, even thinking as far into next year in terms of what season she's going to have, because it seems like she'll only be chasing herself in the history books for single season record-wise moving forward in her grade 12 year next year, since she's the one who was setting all the records this year. Unbelievable year from these goaltenders to the Eastman Selects. I don't think you understand how impressive this is for those that may not be aware. 33 goals against and 13 shutouts combined from their goaltenders in Labossiere and Tomes. For the Winnipeg Avros, their offense was superb. Best in the league. 140 goals for, but guess what? They got shut out twice, and guess who that was against? The Eastman Selects, the Eastman Selects had a historic season, most wins ever by a team in their franchise's history at the U18 AAA female level. A team that also took a jump offensively this season, scored more goals than last year. The additions they had as well during their tryout process, adding on the Rigaud twins was big time for this team. Adding on Isabelle Labossiere as well has paid dividends for their goaltending, like you saw by the stats. That's no offense to Oriana Kennedy, and that's a very interesting storyline heading into that first round series against the Selects, is that Kennedy played on the other side of that first round matchup last season for Eastman when they faced off against Interlake in the quarters in that 3 versus 6 series. A bit different this year as it's 1 versus 8. Going to be getting into that later, but what a year from the Eastman Selects. Surprising to see the Westman Wildcats by how they've just played in really all their history. For them to be 7th place, it's shocking to see. But a young team this season, a team that has top-end talent that came through big in the closing games of this 2024-2025 MFHL year. But they're going to be in tough in the first round against the Avros. Ice and Pembina Valley, that'll be a first-round series that will bring a lot of excitement too. Same with Yellowhead and Brandon. And the crazy thing about Yellowhead and Brandon, the travel time from Brandon to Shoal Lake is about 4 to 5 hours. So that is going to carry a lot of distance, and interested to see, as I should say, how the travel may affect the players, being that they'll be in a car for so long. How do you shake off the bus legs or the car ride legs, no matter how these players get there, right? But MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Goaltender of the Year, Rookie of the Year. There's many awards that the MFHL gives out, as well as scholarship awards, but we're going to focus on 4 in this playoff special, and that's going to be the MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Goaltender of the Year, and Rookie of the Year. And here are my choices. There's no one else who made these selections but myself, and here's going to be my reasons. So we got 3 selects there: Veda Rigaud, Isabelle Labossiere, twice, so I guess only 2 selects, 3 categories where they'd end up having players win, and MVP would be Rio Pierre. MVP, I think that it's clear-cut this season, even though Ivy Perkin had an unbelievable finish to her season to get to 58 points. Ended up showing out big time for her team with multiple games with at least 5 points at the end of the season. Izzy Mann ended up really taking the reins for the Winnipeg Ice and is a big reason why they ended up going up to 3rd place. And of course, Reese Schutte continues to get better and better as she is in her 3rd out of a possible 4 years playing in the MFHL this year. But Rio Pierre, just look at the numbers and look how far ahead she's been. Like, no one even comes close to her in the point categories this season. And yeah, I mean, the closest anyone would be your teammate Natalie Nolgren and Ivy Perkin in terms of only 8 assists back, but the gap everywhere else is in double digits. And if you take a look at the goaltending, like, there were a lot of great goaltenders this season. Addison Tomes, if she stayed healthy, maybe she would have a case to be in this MVP conversation too. But I think that just in terms of how good the players were in front of Tomes, goaltending wise, and her missing that time, it unfortunately did play a role in terms of her maybe not being in some of these conversations. I think that at one point she was on track for goaltender of the year. But getting back to Rio Pierre, no player was more impactful than her this year. She put up numbers that we haven't seen be put up in an MFHL season. She put up over 100 points as an Avro in total games played, which has never been done before. And what makes it even more impressive is she's only in grade 11. She's going to be a grade 12 next year, which she'll probably be even better. But for this season, haven't quite seen one like it in my time covering the MFHL. And the Avros sit 2nd place too, and we're this close to finishing 1st place for the 5th time in their franchise's history. And yeah, I think that for Rio and the rest of the Avros, but for Rio in this case, doesn't really care about this award. I think she rather cares about winning a championship. But yeah, to me, she's the MVP and is the best player in the league this season. As for Defensive Player of the Year, it has to be Veda Rigaud, in my opinion. No defenseman had more points than Veda. Veda was tremendous both ways this season and ended up setting the record for points by defenseman in the single season in MFHL play. For Veda Rigaud, playing as a part of course, the best defensive team in the MFHL, and being a big part of that. When you take a look at where she ranked on the Eastman team too, a team that was very balanced, she led the way in points. So she was really doing everything for this Eastman Selects team this season on both ends. She was their MVP, and for Veda Rigaud, taking a look, trying to find out if she has another year, because I swear she does. I just want to confirm this. But, let's see. Yeah, she has another season, so, I mean, this is the start of great things for her in her MFHL stint with Eastman, and yeah, ends up leading the team in points, leading all defensemen in league in points, breaks a record, a lot of record breakers here in the MFHL this season, and for me, yeah, no defenseman more impactful than Veda Rigaud this season. Getting my prediction, my nod for Defensive Player of the Year. In terms of Goaltender of the Year, this one was a tough decision because Adriana Almeida was fantastic too. She put up the most wins in a season ever, breaking an Avros record. But for Isabelle Labossiere, the reason I have the rookie as not only my goaltender of the year, but my rookie of the year, is that, look, she's got 2 years left in this league, obviously. She came from a program last year in Eastman's U15 AA program, which ended up making it to the finals and ultimately lost to the Brandon Wheat Kings. This season, she was very good when Tomes was healthy, and then Tomes goes down when she's having a goaltender of the year caliber season, and she was my goaltender of the year at one point. And for Isabelle Labossiere, she didn't have a game off and won pretty much every game except for two down the stretch. So to do that as a rookie and to post the numbers that she did too, 16 wins, only one regulation loss, and 75% of her losses come in extra time. Her save percentage a bit less than Adriana Almeida. And yeah, she played in front of a very good defensive Eastman team. I think that, of course, will help any goaltender out. But as a rookie, to put up 7 shutouts, it was just unbelievable. And to do that when you're the only regular goaltender on the team, they were calling players up, yes. And now Addison Tomes is healthy, which is, amazing for this Eastman team, for them moving forward. I was trying to find another word to say, but I couldn't find the words. But yeah, spectacular rookie season for a goaltender that had a lot of pressure on her, playing all the games she did down the line, and Isabelle Labossiere, and to lead the league in shutouts, to put up the save percentage she put up, to be tied for the league lead in wins, and where Eastman finishes best record in franchise history. For me, Labossiere, given those factors, is goaltender of the year and being the rookie. She was like Wozniacki and Gabby Robbins were great this year for the Winnipeg Ice, both finishing top 10 in points. But for me, yeah, based on the numbers, like no other rookie led in the categories like Labossiere did. So yeah, that's who I would pick for my rookie of the year, and my goaltender of the year, as our awards are on the table now. Rio Pierre, Vederigo, and Labossiere winning 2 awards for my money. Pierre MVP, Veda Defensive Player of the Year. We'll show you it one last time if we can. That's the stats leaders again. But yeah, these are our award predictions. Let us know what your award predictions are down in the comments or during this live stream of episode 2025 playoff special. I can't remember the episode number off the top of my head, but yes, this is the 2025 playoff special here on your home for MFHL Hockey on GShow Productions. The MFHL 2025 playoff special will roll on here coming up. After these highlights, we're going to start getting into our first round previews from the quarterfinals that will be starting on Tuesday night in Winnipeg, with the Winnipeg Ice taking on the Pembina Valley Hawks at the Hockey for All Center. But first, we're going to be showing you another Winnipeg team in the Winnipeg Avros, as they were taking on the Yellowhead Chiefs, fresh off of their 4-0 loss to the Eastman Selects. For the Yellowhead Chiefs, they were riding high heading into that one, defeating the Winnipeg Ice down at their home rink in Shoal Lake 2-1 the night before. Coming into Winnipeg with a lot of hope to take down the Avros, and starting off with the 2-0 lead, the Winnipeg Avros would show a really key part of their game at this point in the season, especially to make things interesting. You'll see what we mean coming up next here on the MFHL podcast. The 2025 playoff special rolls on here as we continue to show you our finale coverage of the 2024-2025 regular season. Stay tuned, everybody, for more playoff coverage coming up next.
And welcome in, MFHL fans, into the penultimate MFHL Game Day live stream for this 2024-2025 MFHL regular season, live from Seven Oaks Arena on a Saturday night. 2 of the top 4 teams in the league this year going to battle. It's the second seed currently, the Winnipeg Avros, taking on the 4th seed in the Yellowhead Chiefs. There's an Avro trying to spin away. That's Pierre. Ends up getting free and plays it to Wozni. Nice angle. Smooth move by Wozni. Can't connect backdoor with that pass. into the direction of George. George taken away. Lavely able to get it to the net. Backdoor feed to Pierre. Inner skates, though, wasn't able to take advantage. Looking for, this was Lavely. Gets her own rebound, but turned aside by Merckx. Yellowhead controls down low. Their first offensive zone possession in a while. Is that a tricky shot for Sylvester to turn aside? As this taken away by Yellowhead again, cutting to the net, but shut down by the Avros. Or maneuvering, rather, away from the Avros checking before playing this up to Woloski. That shot through a screen, scores! Woloski taking advantage of a big opportunity on the rush for the Yellowhead Chiefs to draw first blood in this game accurately. I'd say almost all of it for most of this game so far, but could this be the momentum that Yellowhead needs to get through? Yes, that scores! That goal into the back of the net through the 5-hole Madeline Sylvester, and it's a quick bang bang for the Yellowhead Chiefs on the scoreboard. Able to just take advantage off of the rush to get past the Avros defense, set up, find open space, and at that time it was Jordan Veach who, oh, that puck almost behind and into the back of the net off of Merckx's back. So with 19 seconds remaining, the Avros play through transition from their own end as they're able to break in successfully. Amy, her shot scores! Liberty Amy picking that top right corner past Claire Merckx as the Avros finding a second life heading in to the first intermission. And able to send that through cross ice to Haggard as she gains the zone. Haggard stops up at the hash marks, tries to power through to the net. Now beautiful pass. Oh, Merckx, what a save in front, denying Wozni. What a feed from Haggard, though. Can't get over how she was able to maneuver through and even get that pass through. As this gets through to the slot, that denied by Merckx in front. Turned wide of the net off of a Chiefs player's stick. As Pierre loses the puck, picked up by Lavely. That shot scores! Kelly Lavely picks the corner, tied this game up. Deflects wide of the net as this almost another successful kill for the Chiefs. Maybe not here. Oh, what a defensive play by number 5. As this kicked out to Lavely. Backdoor pass. Oh, just denied by Merckx. Was Pierre on the front door. It gets onto Hotson's stick. Plays it up to the point. That shot blocked up huge by the Avros as it's Sydney Haggard sending herself the other way. Has Wozni with her, but Haggard dangles. Oh, denied by Merckx. The recent York University commit shuts down number 8. That pass able to get through to Speechley. Dangles through Speechley. What a move, but nice defensive effort by the Yellowhead Chiefs defenseman. No icing called on the play as a few players blowing a tire. This in advantage for the Avros. It's Leah Clausen scores! Avros go up by 1. 3-2 the score with a minute 31 remaining in this second period of action. Either one of them is that unable to get deep. The Avros looking to stretch the ice. They do. It's to Wozni. Coming back hard. It's Kirk Wozni. Unloads. Getting her own rebound, but Merckx denies her twice. Into the Avros end. The Avros not able to get anything really going here so far as this turned over onto the stick of Gray. She dangles off the post. Almeida might have just gone a piece of it. As it's Liberty Amy ends up going into the shin pads of Hodgson. Amy loses her stick. Tracking it is a Chiefs player who's denied by Almeida. Wishing Sylvester a speedy recovery if she is dealing with something. And now, oh no, an Avro blowing a tire, blows one again, a Shortridge 2-on-0 developing, Gray dangles, denied by Adriana Almeida, what a save! Up one more goal, then that could very well salt things away in this one, but the Chiefs still with the chance. This puck gets loose to Maxwell, she's behind the Avros defense, oh, glove saved by Almeida, just catching a piece of that one. Been experiencing a bit of glitches with the internet tonight for some reason. As Pollock looking for a wraparound, Almeida shuts the door on that right post. Out of their own end here to get an extra attacker on, which would make it technically even strength by the numbers into the low slot. That shot denied, wide of the net it goes. As the Avros work it through again, Clausen denied again by Merckx. But the Chiefs able to shovel it out. One more chance, huge block by Liberty Amy. She clears it out for one final time in this game as number 17. A huge play in the defensive zone at the end there, sacrificing the body, the shin pads. She opened up the scoring in this game, ends up being on the ice until the very end.
McKenna Fasteners and Tools has been the place to shop for your industrial needs for over 20 years. Carrying the tools you need to get the job done from the brands you can trust, McKenna Fasteners and Tools has you covered. Brands like Milwaukee Tool, established in 1924 and on display in our Milwaukee Red Zone, the largest red zone in Winnipeg. With construction workers and tradespeople in mind, McKenna Fasteners and Tools is your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. So come on down to our Winnipeg store location today, located on 1557 King Edward Street in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And welcome back to the Manitoba Major Junior Hockey League, or the Manitoba Female U18 AAA Hockey League podcast, everybody. Just adjusting my shirt, as you can see there. Kind of an awkward moment, but we carry on, as apologies about getting the podcast name wrong, as this is the 2025 playoff special for the MFHL podcast, of course, brought to you by McKenna Fasteners and Tools, Terrico Goaltenders, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. We've talked about my award predictions so far, shown you the standings, the results from Interlake's comeback win in the 8 versus 9 play-in series, as we'll show you one more time here. Island Timchek was huge. He had 2 assists in that 3-0 victory on Friday night to send the Lightning through. Oriana Kennedy also bouncing back with a shutout win of her own after falling short. Her and the Lightning in that 1-0 game that they ended up losing to the Central Plains Capitals. Of course, as mentioned, the end of Elise Denbo's MFHL career. She went out with a bang, however, faced a lot of shots throughout this series, and to be honest with you, like, that first game really wasn't on Kennedy, as Interlake put up 55 shots. They just couldn't find ways to beat Denbo, but they found plenty of ways to beat Denbo in the final 2 games of the series. Funny enough, though, Denbo only allowed 5 goals the rest of the way in this series, in total in this series, as the 2 goals to make it 3-0 in that third period were empty netters for the Lightning. But yeah, for Interlake, they have a tall task ahead of them, as in the first round of the playoffs, they're going to be taking on the Eastman Selects, as mentioned, and we'll show you the standings here again. Eastman, with their best season ever in franchise history, just edging out the Winnipeg Avers to finish first place for the first time ever. Historically dominant defensively. Last season, this was a team that only put up the 5th most goals in the MFHL, with 73. This season, a different story. 113 for the Winnipeg Avros. 140 goals for, which was a big improvement from the 84 they put up last season. Teams played more games, sure, this year, 4 more for the first time in their history, given that Brandon was added in, but no team scored over 100 goals last year, so it was nice to see 3 teams cracking 100 goal mark, as the Winnipeg Ice finished second in that category. But as for this series coming up against the Eastman Selects and Interlake Lightning, the Selects dominated the season series 4-0. There were some closer games in there, but for the most part, it was all Eastman. For the Interlake Lightning, of course, fresh off of defeating the Central Plains Capitals in the 8 versus 9 play-in, they may be a bit fresher to start off in this series, or not fresher to start off, that's not the right word. They may be more in tune with their game heading into this series in terms of they've played more hockey recently compared to the Eastman Selects, but Eastman's going to have that rest on their side, and I think they could definitely use it with the injuries they sustained. And even though those players back now in Grenier and in Tomes, and by the way, Grenier made a huge impact in her return to the lineup against the Avers on that Friday night victory with a hat trick. But yeah, I think that it ended up working in the favor of the Eastman Selects with this play-in being played. But for Interlake, they're going to be heavy underdogs in this series, given that they're the only team in this league this year that finished with below, or one of two teams, them in the Central Plains Capitals, but the only team left in the playoffs that didn't crack the 10-win mark this year. And I think that it doesn't really matter for this team at the end of the day, though, because they believe in themselves, and they believe that maybe they're written off already, right? Maybe, they feel like they're heavily overlooked. This is a team that is younger than last year, lost some key pieces, but brought in some key pieces as well. I think that Oriana Kennedy playing in this series is going to be very interesting, given that, as mentioned, she was an Eastman Select last year, and she's a senior, so this is her last series ever. Of course, the Rigos were Interlake Lightning players last year, so it's going to be really fascinating to see how those storylines play out with former teammates going at it. But Interlake has experience on this team. They have players that have been big-time performers throughout this season, and they need that to come through in this series. They need their goaltending to step up, too. I think that that's going to be a huge part of this series against the Eastman Selects is just... Yeah, Eastman is a relentless team, and they're going to come at you heavy. They're going to come at you hard. And as for the Eastman Selects, we've talked about them plenty already, but best regular season in franchise history. Historic defensive dominance, finishing with only one more goal than their games played, with 33 goals against in 32 games played. And they're extremely balanced. Like, their leading point getter is a defensive player, a defenseman in Veda Rigo. Their leading scorer is her twin sister in Delaney Rigo, and what an addition those two have been for this team that just got deeper and better throughout the offseason, throughout tryouts. And yeah, other players have stepped up big time on this team. Players in their second year like Isabella Carrier, Cheyenne Scott Cook playing such a key role defensively and in the face-off circle for this team. Players like Sophia Heidinger, a player as well in Danielle Hepner, Maya Grenier stepping up big time with the hat trick. Like, the list goes on, and what a special moment that was for Hepner, scoring a hat trick in the final game ever for her in the regular season in Eastman Selects U18 AAA jersey. But the balance this team brings, and just looking at this first round playoff series, which, by the way, this is the schedule. Eastman games weren't put in yet when we put this in. Playoffs start this Tuesday. Eastman series is going to start Wednesday night. Then they'll play on Saturday afternoon. Then I believe it's Tuesday. We'll confirm that coming up here. But yeah, it's deja vu for both of these teams. They faced off against each other in the first round of the playoffs last year when it was 3 versus 6. Eastman finished as the 3rd seed. Interlake finished as the 6th seed. It was the best season in Interlake's franchise history and the best season in Eastman's franchise's history. This season, these two teams have went in opposite directions, quite literally. Eastman went up 2 spots in the standings, and the Lightning went down 2 spots in the standings. Interlake is battle-tested, though, heading into this first-round playoff matchup. They've had a chance to face playoff pressure already in the play-in series, and they're motivated. They're a motivated group. I'm sure they feel like no one outside of that locker room believes in them, and they got some big time players on this team that can step up. We're talking about players like, well, let's take a look here. As the MFHL's website, kind of tricky to navigate, to be honest with you. But yeah, for Interlake, when you look at their roster, their captain, Brianne Windross, leads the way. She's going to have to be a big factor in this series, putting up 27 points in 35 games this season. For Island Timchak as well. She has to continue her big-time play from the first round in this series if this team wants a chance. Chloe Minkus as well needs to step up big time in this series. Basically, they need their best players to be their best players, and they need Oriana Kennedy or Jane Sugimoto to step up big time in net as well. This is going to take a whole team effort to take down an Eastman Selects team, and even that, in my opinion, won't be enough. I think that the emotions in this series it could be high to start off and throughout as it goes along, given that, for a lot of players, this is potentially their final hockey they're going to play in this league. 9 for the Interlake Lightning in terms of their seniors. And then, Eastman has 5 seniors on this team that, of course, could be on their last runs. So I think that and the former teammates playing against each other in this series is going to be so intriguing. But if I had to pick in terms of who moves through, it's got to be the Eastman Selects. Look, like this team, 4-0 in the season series against the Interlake Lightning, and I just feel like talent-wise they got too much on paper for an Interlake Lightning team that, compared to many teams in this league, has struggled to put the puck in the net this season, and you're already going up against a historically great defensive team in the Eastman Selects. Pairing that with a team that doesn't put the puck in the net as much as most teams in this league, and given that they're more of an opportunistic team when they've had success and have been able to get the cycle going, I just feel like the skill for Eastman's going to take over in this series, and it's going to make what Interlake likes to do usually to have success very hard for them to do in this series. I just feel like Eastman's going to have them overmatched, and I honestly see a sweep in this series. To be honest with you, I don't think motivation is going to be enough for this Interlake Lightning squad, unfortunately, and I think they get bounced in the first round, sending Eastman through. Forgot to make updated versions of the bracket, so Eastman would await who would end up, whoever makes it through the lowest seed. I believe that's how the playoffs are going to be structured, and how they go round by round. By the way, we're just going to go through the bracket from top to bottom here. So the next series we're going to talk about the cross-province battle. The Yellowhead Chiefs taking on the Brandon Wheat Kings. In Brandon's first go-around in the playoffs, a team who rose up in the standings by quite a bit as the season came to an end. They were in 7th place at one point, even in 8th place, I think. But it didn't matter in the end, as Brandon rode great goaltending. Their best players stepped up. They had a crucial back-to-back wins against the Pembina Valley Hawks, as well as against their rival in the Westman Wildcats, who were just about an hour or a bit less away from Brandon in the final week of the regular season, to put them in 5th place position to take on the Yellowhead Chiefs. Of course, for Yellowhead, usually a contender in the MFHL year in and year out, looking to make it back to yet another Final Four, which would mark, I believe, just trying to think back, for sure their 3rd year in a row, might be their 4th or 5th. But yeah, this franchise has been nothing but consistent. And when taking a look at the Brandon Wheat Kings, their opponent, they're the new kids on the block. They're the expansion team this season. They pull players from different teams around the MFHL, from Westman, some from the Central Plains Capitals too. But they also brought some homegrown talent. Rookie and Sydney Sass stepped up big time for this team this year and produced a lot of offense. Their best player up front ended up being Paige Crossley, who led the way with 33 points in 32 games, the only player over a point per game on this team. But yeah, this team put together, another term you could use, maybe Frankenstein together. Players that have played together in the past, some players that haven't played with each other before. And yeah, at points this season, to be honest with you, it was looking rough. They got their teeth kicked in a few times by some of these teams. Rude awakening playing against some of those Winnipeg teams, although they did have a big extra time shootout 3-2 win over the Winnipeg Ice earlier this year. But as the season went along, this team had positive growth. They rose up the standings, as mentioned, from 7th to all the way to 5th place. And will the ride continue? Well, they're going to be going up against a very strong Yellowhead Chiefs team, another talented Chiefs team, who are looking for consistency, to be honest with you. This is a team that at times this year showed to be, I think, a team that could hoist a championship. And at other times, at other points, they fell flat on their faces. Can you finally put it all together for a team that has great veteran talent when you look at players like Kirby Gray, their captain, Grace Kirk, also taking a look at their roster, Presley Hodson has been big time this season. Jordan Veach has put up some big time goals. Emma Pollock, they got really good veteran talent, and then you look at players like Nicole Rose-Deba, who has stepped up this season at points, and I look at them in net, like Claire Merckx has been a top 3 goaltender in wins for a majority of this year. So they got the talent, and I think going up against a Brandon Wheatking's team where they were able to win the season series 3-1, I think taking a look at how this series plays out throughout 5 games, the most important pieces in this series, of course, will be the best players for Brandon for themselves, but it's going to be Danica Averill. Can she steal this series? As I feel like for Brandon this year, even though they've had success, this is a team that gives up a lot of shots, and for the Yellowhead Chiefs, this is a team that plays very aggressive. I expect for Yellowhead to end up battling really hard in this series and really pressing this Brandon Wheating squad and pushing them in these games, and I could see a lot of time spent in the Brandon zones in this game. The most interesting factor in this series, however, is going to be how these teams wear off the bus legs, the travel legs, and get ready to play, because, man, it's going to be a lot of travel in this cross-province battle. 4 to 5 hours is the road trip in length. So that's going to be interesting. But I think that Brandon's key to victory, their best path to victory in this series, is going to come from the play of Danica Averill, who has put up quietly some of the best numbers in the MFHL this season. Has been a big reason why Brandon's won their big games. Back to that game against the Winnipeg Ice when they won in a shootout, Averill put up over 60 saves on over 60 shots faced. So she's going to be the key in this series, and can players like Paige Crossley, Sydney Sass, players of that caliber, as well as Jordan Bell, get going for Brandon in this series. I think that gives them their best chance, but I just feel like looking at the Yellowhead Chiefs, given the talent that this team has, it's about them finding their consistency, finding their A game. I do think they find it to take down Brandon in this series. I think that Claire Merckx is going to settle in well. They're going to play well defensively in front of her. I think even if they take penalties, their penalty kill and special teams is going to come through. And I think it's going to be a series where we see players like Kirby Gray, Grace Kirk from the back end take over. And I think this comes down to experience. I think that these are two great coaches going up against each other in Kirkup and in Tibbetts, but I think for Derek Tibbetts and his group, they've just been here before at this level. It's a bit different than the U15 AAA level. So it's a faster, more physical game, I feel like, given the ages of these players. And Yellowhead has played in these situations more so before with more of this veteran group. And I think that with them having the type of consistency of being together, that consistency will pull through for them in this series. And they'll set up another Final Four date, which would be against, if everything else goes to plan and the other favorites win, they'd be taking on the Eastman Selects. We're going to throw it to another set of highlights, everybody, from our regular season finale in MFHL Game Day coverage for this regular season. Then I'll be back to take you through my predictions for Ice versus the Pembina Valley Hawks and the Avros and Westman Wildcats. That all coming up next on this edition of the MFHL podcast, the 2025 playoff special on your home for MFHL Hockey, GShow Productions on GShow.ca.
This is game 32 of this regular season this afternoon between the Selects and the Chiefs, the Yellowhead Chiefs, that is. And this MFHL Game Day broadcast brought to you by Mid-Canada Fasteners and Tools, Terrico, Goaltenders, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. Hepner trying to maneuver away from the pressure, gets it up to the point to Haas. Haas' shot tipped on net, denied by Johnston. Thank you for tuning in on this Super Bowl Sunday, by the way, everybody. Let us know what your favorite Super Bowl scores! Right as I'm talking about the Super Bowl, it's a super goal for number 19 and Danielle Hepner. To Callie Remillard, plays this over. To Lexi Remillard. Over to Hepner as her shot ends up deflecting off the pads of Johnston. On to Callie Remillard's stick now. She circles up, rebound there, scores! And is it Danielle Hepner again? I think it just maybe makes this a 2-0 lead for Eastman Select squad. Trying to get this down low. It does go to Heidinger. Tries to locate in the slot. It gets there. That shot not able to go through. Now Heidinger banging away at it. Scott Cook unable to put that in back door, but up to the point it goes. Chloe Carrier's shot just getting a piece of that was Gracie Johnston to clog the wall up. Sent down low. Now ends up to the point for Rose Cochran. She tries shooting, but fans on it. Ends up on Hepner's stick. It's number 19 with 2 goals already. And this 2-0 lead kicks it out. That shot on net off the post, scores! A hat trick for number 19. As she completes the natural Hattie to put Eastman up 3-0. Are you kidding me? But taken away by Eastman again below the goal line. Worked up to the point. Haas, her shot, looking for a tip, set in the net. Hepner denied. Rebound there. We're back to even strength. Still banging away at it. Eastman shoveled in front of the net again, but turned aside by Johnston. As Veach sends this below the goal line for Pollock. Pollock tries to protect this puck. Now out in front, loose in the slot. Despiège-Lair unable to whack away at it. That's a great job by Eastman to converge on that. Labossiere makes a heads-up save off of that deflection as they go off for a change. 1:14 remaining in this period. This chipped up by Maxwell, but unable to get to it first as Lexi Remillard back in her own end. This stretch pass up, connects, offside, not going to be called. Heidinger dangles and scores! Into the opposite corner by Sophia Heidinger, the most recent goal scorer in this game. Now Vader Rigaud plays it to the net, gets it with a great hand eye out of the air. Face off, won by Eastman up to Lexi Remillard. Her shot through deflects wide of the net off the stick of Schroeder. Dixon gets it off the boards to the slot. That shot scores! Isabella Carey makes it a 5-0 game. Cochran up the boards, turns this over to Rigaud. Ends up back in the neutral zone. Gray able to get a step. Gray in. Oh, has her pocket pick. Great defensive effort on the back check by Blake Hawes as she got a stick in. Off the stick of an Eastman player back down to the Yellowhead zone. Is this taken away by Scott Cook? Nice stick. High slot. Cook sends it towards the net. Rebound there. Whacking away at it. Delaney Rigaud, but ends up under the pad of Gracie Johnston. So it's over to Heidinger now. Works her way in. Heidinger as she stick handles and stops up now near the point. Heidinger dangles past Taryn Knight. Able to shoot. Scores! An inaccurate shot. A rip from number 16 in Sophia Heidinger past Gracie Johnston. Extends this lead to 6-0 for the Eastman Selects. On this girl advantage now. As this intercepted towards the net, Gray wide of it, as she's had so many chances like that. To Delaney Rigo, she makes a move, making her way towards the net, backhand trying to tuck that in, 5-hole, but Johnston denies her. From Pollock as she continues to work here, forces a turnover, held in at the line by Gray for the Chiefs. Picked up by Pollock again, that shot turned aside, rebound there, all over the net, that goes so close. So with 17 seconds remaining on what has been a record-breaking season for the Eastman Selects for the first time in their franchise's history, finishing as the first-place team in an MFHL regular season. They'll have to wait to see who their opponent is for the upcoming first round, but congratulations to the Eastman Selects, who finished this season with historic numbers all around. Only 33 goals against all season long, which we're going to do some digging. Has to be an all-time best, you'd have to think so.
Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, The Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. And welcome back to the MFHL podcast, everybody. The playoff special for 2024-2025. And you're home for MFHL hockey on GShow Productions on GShow.ca. That was a commercial you just saw from McKenna Fasteners and Tools. Your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs here in the province of Manitoba. Be sure to check out their store locations in Brandon and Winnipeg today, as well as their website at mckenfasteners.shop. Currently in the middle of editing a commercial for their Brandon location, so stay tuned for that. It'll be airing this week during the MFHL playoffs, start of it, which, taking a look at when the games are going to be starting. Our first game of our broadcast schedule for round one will go on the opener on Tuesday night with the Ice taking on the Pembina Valley Hawks. Avro's Wildcats gets going at Seven Oaks Arena in Winnipeg on Wednesday night. We'll also have that game. We'll have all four of the first two games for these Winnipeg franchises in the Ice and the Avros. Still to be determined if we're going to be broadcasting the Saturday game for the Eastman Selects and Interlake Lightning, which will be held in Warren, Manitoba on Saturday at 2:30 p.m. Check out MFHL U18AAA.com for the full schedule, as I'm sure they've put Eastman's schedule up now. We just didn't have it at the time the screenshots were taken. Wish we could broadcast Yellowhead and Brandon. If one of those teams moves into the Final Four, which one of them will, of course, playing each other, we may be able to broadcast some of their games, given that, well, they'd be playing teams that are more ideal for us to broadcast more likely, or most likely, coming up. But, as we roll on here into our playoff predictions, as I have the Eastman Selects sweeping the Interlake Lightning in round one. I'm just realizing I didn't give a score for the Chiefs and Wheat Kings outcome of that series. I got the Chiefs winning. I think Chiefs are going to win in 4 games. I think Danica Averill could steal a game in there. I could even see the series going 5 games. So like I said, I think the experience that Yellowhead has, a bit more talent on their roster, great veteran talent, and really solid goaltending. I think that comes through for them, and they got one of the best in-game adjusters at coach, very tactically sound in Derek Tibbetts leading them. So he's been there before, like mentioned many times, and has led many teams, guided them to many Final Four appearances, to finals in the past as well. So I'm riding with the experience there, Derek Tibbetts and the crew. The next series to talk about, the Winnipeg Ice and the Pembina Valley Hawks. A question of will, in my opinion, in this series, and I'll explain what I mean by that. When the Interlake Lightning when the Pembina Valley Hawks have had success this season against top-end teams, and they've beaten Winnipeg, the only team that is matching up with their opponent that is tied in the season series between each other in this first round. But when they've had success against the top teams in the league, it's come from them working harder than their opponents. From just what I've seen from when this team has success, that's how this team is going to win games. They aren't the deepest squad in the world. They don't got the greatest goaltending in the league. I think there's many advantages that the Winnipeg Ice have on paper, and they'd have many advantages over many teams in this league. But what Pembina Valley does have is a great top line led by Jessica Anderson, who finished top 5 in the league in goals this season. They have players that have been able to step up throughout their lineup, and they have seen their goaltending at points step up this season. It's a question of, will it step up in the biggest moment here against a loaded, talented Winnipeg Ice squad once again? And the question of will, the matter of will for this Pembina Valley Hawks team is going to be, can you enforce enough of it on the Winnipeg Ice? Can you get enough pressure on them throughout this series in the right moments while holding up defensively in your own end first? Because in my opinion, this series for the Pembina Valley Hawks is going to be won by taking care of their own end first. But yeah, I mean, they're hunting giants, and you got to play hard if you're Pembina Valley. They're top end heavy in terms of their talent, but all around, this is a hard-working team, and that's got to carry through against a loaded Winnipeg Ice team. For the Winnipeg Ice, they're still here. I mean, they're the back-to-back champs. This is a team that has not lost a playoff game throughout the past 2 seasons. Take that into account. Think about that. That is insane. Now, I don't know if it continues to last. I don't think it does. Will they sweep this first round? That still remains to be seen, but I think this is definitely going to be a challenge for them. But the thing about this Winnipeg Ice team is that they're deeper than last season. The rookies they have this year have been sensational. When you take a look at Kate Cairns, Gabby Robbins, as well as Sophie Wasnowski, who were all, Robbins and Wasowski were both top 10 in points. You look at their goaltending and how Bailey Grunwald has been able to step up, and you just look at how Izzy Mann has been able to take the reins this season. Cassie Carvalho is another player who ended up being top 10 in points this season in the league. And then you look on the back end too, like it's not just one player for the Winnipeg Ice, but they got multiple players that can move the puck well in the transition game, and leading the way in that regard is Avery Lazarenko, who has over 100 points in her MFHL career. And then you take a look at Grunwald, her backup, who's a rookie in Gina Plett, who has stepped up to every occasion she's had to step up to in this season. This is a team that won the Female World Sports School Challenge, but through their last weekend of the regular season, fell hard in their Saturday game, and then the game before losing in a tight one in Shoal Lake. But I think the way they finished the regular season was huge for this team's confidence, that 6-1 win against the Brandon Wheat Kings. And the matter and the question for the Winnipeg Ice is that can they continue to ride that wave of success and not revert back to the way they were playing in the previous two games to start their final weekend of the regular season against the Pembina Valley Hawks team that was going to be hungry against them. And just going back to the question of goal, right, this, in my opinion, this series is going to be one off of not only for the Winnipeg Ice, their skill coming through, but if Winnipeg's going to advance and give themselves the best chance to keep their hopes alive to three-peat, they're going to need to make sure to outwork their opponent in every game, because this is the playoffs, and Pembina Valley is talented enough to take down one of these top-end teams if you don't come ready to play. And one of the issues, if there's been any issue that this Winnipeg Ice team has had, not only this year, but what's been talked about throughout the past, 2 seasons now at this point, is they feel they don't play a full 60 minutes, and Eugene Kaminsky sometimes isn't too happy with this team start, the head coach for the Winnipeg Ice, that is. And they need to be ready to bring their A game against the Pembina Valley Hawks team, who does have players that can hurt you. Now they all come on that top line. It'll be interesting to see if the coach and staff over there ends up splitting up that top line to find more offense throughout their lineup as the series goes along. But it's going to be, for the Winnipeg Ice, about limiting players like Cassie O'Brien, Jessica Anderson, and Abigail Brigg, who for O'Brien leads the team in points. Anderson's their leading goal scorer, who's top 5 in goals, and Brigg just under a point per game, but so effective. It's going to come down to the Ice limiting players like that and making other parts of the Pembina Valley Hawks team beat them. But if Pembina Valley is able to get contributions from Anderson, O'Brien, and Brigg throughout the series and skate with this Winnipeg Ice team, it's going to be very interesting, because as good as the Winnipeg Ice have been, we've seen some odd slumps at points so far this year. I think, to be fair, in their last weekend of the regular season, even though they dropped 2 out of 3 games, they were riding off of a huge momentum high off of winning the Female Sports School Challenge. I think that the Winnipeg Ice get set to play and have come back down to earth if they were maybe a bit too high on themselves, and I think they'll take care of business against the Pembina Valley Hawks team still. But I do think it's going to be tough, I think, for the Winnipeg Ice against Pembina Valley. They've, of course, tied the season series against each other this year. I think that Pembina Valley could get one against the Winnipeg Ice. And I think that Pembina Valley is going to push Winnipeg, but I think for Winnipeg, the reason they win is because this is a team where when they succeed, it's because they work hard. They'll pressure you relentlessly. It's a team that passes the puck around maybe as good, if not better, than any team in the league. And they got a bunch of top-end talent. They're even deeper than last year, in my opinion. 127 goals compared to 91. Which ranks second this year compared to when they led the league last year. But yeah, I think that top-end talent comes through. The goaltending, I think, will be solid for the Ice, and I think they move on to keep their hopes of a three-peat alive. The Winnipeg Ice have made it to 4 straight championships, and there's been another team who's made it to I guess 3 straight championships in the Westman Wildcats, who, as mentioned at the start of this podcast episode, had an uncharacteristic season this year. But this is a team in the Westman Wildcats when taking a look at their last, I don't know, few games of the season, had a chance to go out to the Female World Sports School Challenge themselves and made it to the Final Four, lost in the semis and in the bronze medal game, but had some success there. Finished fourth in a tournament with the best teams in Manitoba, some of the best teams from around the country at the AAA level. And then they come back and end up not advancing any higher in the standings, but they come back, lose to the Brandon Wheat Kings, 5-2 loss, and then put up one of their best games of the season with a 6-3 win against the Winnipeg Ice, a 7-2 win the next game against the Central Plains Capitals. So, it begs the question, what type of Westman Wildcats team are we going to get in this first round, ladies and gentlemen? A team that, even though I'd say in terms of the talent all around, this is nowhere near the deeper Westman Wildcats teams that we've seen in the past, even dating back to last year. This is a team that's led by top-end talent in Ivy Perkin and Reese Schutte, who both finished top 5 in points in this league, Lucy Waldner as well, and Callie Hillhorse. Those are the four that this team is going to be riding on, and when we take a look at it, they're going up against an offensive juggernaut in the Winnipeg Avers team who swept them in the season series, and I think it's a real case of David and Goliath, the David versus Goliath, whatever you want to call it. Westman is looking, of course, to go on a playoff run, such as any team, but I think they're looking to prove themselves, this young group, against an Avers team that's had a player, or two players that have had historic seasons in Adriana Almeida and net, finishing with the most wins in franchise history out of any goaltender in total games, and for Rio Pierre, who set team records, league records in a single season, with the most points and most goals ever by a player in an MFHL year. Sure, being 4 more games played than the standard for the past however many years it's been, but still, she put up numbers that were record-breaking even before she hit those 32 games, right? But, when I take a look at the Westman Wildcats, this is an uncharacteristic for a team that's been so good for so long, a team that won a championship back in 18-19, and then again in 21-22 has made it to the finals the past 4 out of the 5 seasons. And look, things happen, right? You're gonna not have the same type of success forever. It's a young team this year. It's a team that I think it's a huge growth year for them. It's a team that has gone through a lot of downs, right? But a team that has been able to find some success here at the end of the year, at the right time, I think. And you're hanging on to hope at that point. And for them to have any success against this Winnipeg Avers team, well, like I've said about every team, but it's true, and especially in this case, but Ivy Perkin and Reese Schutte need to be their best players, and not only that, they need to influence this series heavily. Expect them to double shift throughout this series. That would be something I'd be looking to do if I was Troy Gold and that coaching staff. And, for Ashley Van Egelen, you got to be expecting for them to ride the heck out of their top 4 players in Ivy Perkin, Reese Schutte, Lucy Waldner, and Callie Hillhorse. Oh my God, I think she's going to be logging unprecedented minutes maybe from the back end. We'll have to see during this series. It's going to be huge for her to play at her best. She's going into her final playoff series ever, going up against an offensive juggernaut, as is the rest of her team. Most goals in the league this year for this Winnipeg Avers squad. As we take a look at it, 140 goals scored this year. I just want to make sure that that's right. Yes, 140 goals for the season in the Winnipeg Avers. Unbelievable. So yeah, offensive juggernaut. And when talking about the Winnipeg Avers, I know I bring up Rio Pierre so much on this podcast, but you've also seen it in players like Adeline Nolgren, who finished second in the league in assists with 30, was 8 behind her teammate in Rio Pierre. And then you take a look at Liberty Amy, who finished under a point per game, but fantastic two-way player who only got better offensively this year. Callie Lavely on that second line this year and has even had a chance to play with Pierre. Among the top goal scorers in the league this year with 19 and 32 games in her rookie year. Ellis Speechley, Kelsey Dinetz, who is a great two-way player, can play forward or defense. Then you look at Evie West on the back end, Avery Shortridge, Jenna Clausen, Carlin Zant, like Samantha Cunningham. The list goes on of how many great players this team has. And they had record breakers this season in Rio Pierre and Adriana Almeida, as mentioned. This team has all the pieces to win a championship. They're absolutely loaded, but their kryptonite has been a team like the Eastman Selects. Now they're 3-1 against the Winnipeg Ice in that season series, and that would most likely be their opponent in the Final Four if they would face off against each other, being the 2 and 3. But they need to prove in these playoffs, and I think it starts in this series against the Westman Wildcats, that they can find another year, because they kind of got beat up a bit against the Eastman Selects, and you got to think that Troy Golden's coaching staff is going to be thinking defense first in this series, and is going to be looking back at any tape they can get, which, funny enough, we have it here on GShow Productions for this first round series to prepare, because I think the Avros need to find a way to get a lot of traffic in front of Inigo Stone or Kylie Hack, whichever one that the Westman Wildcats decide to play in this series. I think for Winnipeg, just play your game, right? I think that there could be a lot of nerves in this series, and I think the best way, when you're so heavily favored in the series, because the Winnipeg Avros are the amount of goals that they put up this season, given the ranking, they're the Goliath to Western Wildcats David in this series. And I think for the Winnipeg Avros, their biggest factor into them not advancing out of the first round this year is going to be much like last year, is going to be themselves maybe getting in the way. I don't see that this season. I think that this team is going to take care of their business. They had a lot of success against the Westman Wildcats this season. For the Avros, it's going to be about, I think, game planning to look to contain players like Ivy Perkin and Reese Schutte as best as you can. I think the Avros have the pieces in game to do that. This is one of the best teams that defend against the rush in the league. I think that if the first pass is good for the Avros, they're going to have a chance to sweep in this series if they're able to maneuver out of the defensive zone with these. I think for the Westman Wildcats, this series is going to lie in the hands of players like Ivy Perkin, Schutte, Hillhorst, and Waldner. I think they're going to need to influence it heavily for Westman to have their best chance, but even then, I don't think it's going to be enough. I just think that the Avros have a bit more valuable experience. I think they're on a mission to erasing all the doubt from last season, blowing that 2-0 series lead they had in the quarterfinals to Yellowhead. It's a new year. It's a new Avros team who have played in a lot of meaningful games throughout this season, have handled some things differently, haven't played as many hockey games as last year maybe in a short amount of time. But I think they're playoff ready, and I think that their depth, their talent, it's just going to be too much for the Western Wildcats, who they're young and have a shortage of talent compared to the top-end teams this season. So I think that if Westman was able to win, this would be one of the biggest upsets in recent memory in MFHL play, given the Avros roster compared to theirs. So I got the Avros winning. We're going to go, you know what? A sweep or 4 games, I'm thinking. Yeah, I think game 1 goes to Westman gets game one, things get interesting. I think the Avros need to get game one to, really feel comfortable in this series, because I think they have the talent to cruise in this series, but at the same time, it's just about getting over that mental hurdle. I think the Avros do. I think for Winnipeg, they will end up winning this series in 4 games. I think they take the first game. Westman takes game 2 in Hartney. And then Winnipeg wins on the Saturday night on MFHL game day, and then takes game 4 in Hartney. So the final 4, I have it set as the Ice versus Avros and the Selects and Chiefs. We're going to take a very quick transition here, and then I'll get into the final 4 matchups coming up here on the MFHL podcast, the 2025 playoff special, as we continue to roll along here. Well, welcome back to the MFHL 2025 playoff special. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be breaking up these segments into chunks. So, yeah, we're going to put them out on YouTube for everyone to watch. We're going to look to timestamp as well for these segments in this long special. There's been a lot to talk about previewing these series against these great teams as the Final Four. Well, I have it set as the Eastman Selects moving through, sweeping the Interlake Lightning. I think the Chiefs win in 4 games over the Brandon Wheat Kings. I think that Winnipeg takes it in 4 games over Pembina Valley. And I think that the Avros win in 4 games over the Westman Wildcats. So, like I said, I think Brandon and the Chiefs, Yellowhead, that could go to 5 games very well. Who knows? I mean, the only season series that was tied, Pembina Valley and the Ice, that could go the distance to the 5 games. And who knows? Maybe Interlake doesn't even get swept and they catch Eastman by surprise. But Eastman would be playing the Yellowhead Chiefs in the Final Four if those 2 teams advance, and Winnipeg, both Winnipeg teams would be facing off against each other, which we're going to save that series for now. I want to talk about the Chiefs and Eastman Selects, as I think that taking a look at the way these teams matched up against each other this season, just taking a look at the season series, I believe Eastman ended up winning it by a score of 3-1. But I'm going to take a look back right now. So, the first matchup of the season between these 2 teams came on November 30th, Saturday, October 12th. So, early into the season, where Eastman ended up winning by a score of 4-3. And then we get into the next time they played, which was on November 30th, where Eastman ended up winning 5-0. So a bit more of a dominant game there from the Selects. The very next matchup between these 2 squads would come all the way on Saturday, January 18th, where Eastman would end up winning 3-1 over Yellowhead, and the most recent matchup ended up being a 6-0 victory in the highlights that you saw a while back in this episode now. Between those 2 teams in the regular season finale last Sunday. So, what does that mean for this series? I think that it's the Yellowhead Chiefs, one of the best coaches in the league, and Derek Tibbetts getting a shot at a defensive juggernaut in the Eastman Selects. And I think for Yellowhead, in that matchup against Eastman in the final game of the regular season, if the outcome ends up being like that, where Eastman is just dominating the shot categories, 37-15, where Eastman is controlling most of the play, and you're just hoping to dump and chase it and win races to the puck. I don't think you're going to have much success in this series if you're unable to win your puck battles. And I think that was something that Eastman was just executing on better in that regular season finale. I think for Eastman, them sweeping the season series this year it just says a lot about how good this team has been against top-end teams in the league. Like, their only losses against top-end teams came to the Winnipeg Ice, which 2 of them came in overtime. An overtime loss to the Winnipeg Avers, and they shut out the Winnipeg Avers twice, the only team to shut out that Avers squad this season. So Yellowhead's going to have their hands full, and I think that this series coming up is going to be one through the neutral zone. Yellowhead's ability to take away that stretch pass, I think, is going to be crucial, and forcing Eastman to go off the boards and keeping this game to the outside throughout the course of the best of 5 is going to be crucial for Yellowhead's success. Claire Merckx, of course, needs to be on the top for her game, because it's most likely going to be Eastman carrying most of the offensive zone time in this semifinals matchup. I think for Eastman, they're going to settle into their game and just find ways to wear Yellowhead down as this series goes along. I think that as deep as Yellowhead is, I think that Eastman, given how good defensively they are, I think that they'll continue to win the puck battles in this Final Four. I think that unless Derek Tibbetts cooks up a masterpiece and his players execute on it flawlessly, I think that they're in tough. I think that Eastman just, for a lot of teams, has too much depth for Yellowhead to handle, and I think that this is a series where Eastman, their speed is going to take over. This is arguably the fastest team Eastman has ever had, and Yellowhead took the most penalties this season in the MFHL, so I think that speed could play a big factor into Eastman getting a lot of special teams opportunities. They had the most power play goals in the league this year, and I think that could put Yellowhead in trouble. I just think there's too many factors working against the Chiefs where Eastman can take advantage. They're 3 lines deep. Their defense core can get active into the play and contribute in a huge way. Veda Rigo, I think, is going to be maybe one of the most impactful players in this series and probably throughout the first 2 rounds for the Eastman selects. And yeah, I think that defense holds up for Eastman, and they're able to just find ways to wear down Yellowhead and win races to the puck for the majority of this series and come away with the victory. I think it goes to 4 games. I think we could also see a sweep as well for Eastman. I think that it's going to be a frustrating one for Yellowhead, to be honest with you. But hey, if they're listening to this, Chiefs, prove me wrong. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see what would be considered a big upset, I think, given how dominant Eastman has been this year. Let's get into the Winnipeg Avers versus Winnipeg Ice series now, shall we? So, Eastman would await the winner of that series in the finals. And for the Winnipeg Avers, they ended up winning the season series this year, as mentioned, between them and the Winnipeg Ice. And the first matchup these teams had actually opened up our MFHL game day regular season broadcast schedule all the way back on October 2nd, which saw a back and forth game between these 2 teams that couldn't be settled until a shootout, which went in favor of the defending champs in the Winnipeg Ice. Winnipeg, of course, coming into this series, not sure if they'll still be undefeated, dating all the way back to when their championship run started, but their bigger goal at this point, going for a three-peat, But Eugene Kaminsky would probably say his biggest goal, this team's biggest goal, is just to get to a championship and win it. But I'm sure he'd be happy with how things play out no matter how this series plays out. It should be a lot of fun, as all matchups between these two teams this season were close. The first two games were only separated by one goal, as the Avros bounced back and finally defeated the Winnipeg Ice 3-2 back on November 16th, which was a huge win for the Winnipeg Avros, because Winnipeg, the Ice, swept the Avros in their season series last year. So it was just something that the Avros couldn't quite get done. They couldn't beat this Winnipeg Ice squad, and they finally had accomplished that all the way back on November 16th. The next time these two teams faced off against each other, it wasn't for a while, all the way up until, well, just taking a look at it. Just trying to find the schedule. I know the most recent matchup they faced off against was in the Winnipeg Sports School, or in the Female World Sports School Challenge. But yeah, they would face off shortly after the 16th, actually on the 20th, where Winnipeg would win that matchup 5-1. The Avros, that is, over the Ice. And then the Avros would end up winning in the season series finale 4-2 over the Ice on January 19th. But shortly after that, about a week after, around there, the Ice would get their revenge in the semifinals of the Female World Sports School Challenge, where they would defeat the Avros 2-1 in overtime to advance to the finals, where of course they'd go on to defeat Rink Hockey Academy Winnipeg by a score of 5-4 to claim the gold. But as for playoffs and when these two teams would theoretically be meeting each other, if the prediction holds up and they do face each other in the Final Four, I don't think any of the previous matchups matter in a series like this. They do hold some water, but look, this is maybe the most anticipated series, I think, of this playoffs. You got two Winnipeg teams that are among the top three teams in the league, that are championship contenders, where, one of the most recent times where they were supposed to play last was back in 2019-2020. I know I bring this up all the time, but in that championship series then, when it didn't end up getting played. So, at this point in the season, with them both being championship contenders, I can't remember off the top of my head if they played recently in a semifinal series during one of the Ice's back-to-back runs. But nonetheless, this series just feels different if it ends up happening. You got the Winnipeg Ice, who would be a series away from having a chance to compete for their third MFHL championship in a row, and a Winnipeg Avros team going up against a Winnipeg Ice team where the Avros have been searching for a championship as a franchise for years, haven't been able to get it, and then the Winnipeg Ice come along and have been able to win multiple championships at this point, and it kind of put the Avros in their shadow in ways when, this league gets talked about, where the Winnipeg Ice have gotten so much attention dating back to last year. Not as much this year, as it's been about players for the Winnipeg Avros like Rio Pierre that have really led the way, and I think this is a series too for a player like Rio, where she just would thrive in a situation like this, and we may see the best of number 9. But, as great as a season as Rio Pierre had, the teams held her scoreless in all 3 games to end off the season for the Avros. But Winnipeg still found a way to go 2-1, and I think that's a huge part of this team, is they have the depth, because they're going to need it against the Winnipeg Ice team that, well, you could argue is the deepest team in this league, up there with the Avros and the Selects. I think that this series is going to feature unreal offensive talent, amazing displays of defense, and unreal goaltending Like, we got ourselves a treat of a playoff series if this ends up happening. And I feel like we could very well see it go the distance, or, 4 games at the very least. For the Winnipeg Avros, I think learning how to beat the Winnipeg Ice. I know I just talked about how the regular season matchups before don't really matter, but everything the Avros have gone through this season, to be honest with you, like, I guess doing a 180 on it and backtracking a bit, but I think that the experiences that they've had have shown a lot of growth in this franchise this season, this group of players that this franchise has currently. And I think that the experiences that they've had, if they're able to bank off of that, will serve them well in this series against a Winnipeg Ice team, which is going to play you hard. And I think it comes back to the point to me for the Winnipeg Avers, if they're going to be able to get to a championship, is you got the skill, and you've had skilled teams before. This is one of their most skilled teams in recent memory. But back in 2021-2022, when they were the top seed in the league, they ended up falling in the semifinals to, well, that ended up being the Winnipeg Ice, I believe, who ended up beating them when, the Avros ended up being the favorite in that series. They'd be the favorite again. It's about, can you pull through? And I know this is a different group of players, but that's really what this is all about for the Winnipeg Avros. Like, at a certain point, it just comes down to, can you get it done in the key moments? Can your players step up to make that key play in the key moments? Because that's what it's going to be about. It's going to be about moments. You got the team on paper to go all the way. It's about going out and proving it, and proving you can clutch up in the clutch moments. Proving that, players can step up if they end up trying to really shut down and contain Rio Pierre. Sticking to your game at the same time and not going away from what makes you successful against a Winnipeg Ice team that's going to be doing everything in your power to disrupt your transition game and to disrupt what you're trying to do offensively. For the Avros, you got to score early, and you got to start off with the lead in a series like this, because when the Winnipeg Ice have had success this season against the top teams, notably against a team like the Eastman Selects, they were able to survive that first wave, that first attack, and when they settle into the game, they'd start to get their cycle going, very similar to a way like the Eastman Selects would, and they started to take over the game. Winnipeg Ice has too much talent for you to let them hang around, and players like Izzy Mann and Cassie Carvalho, Avery Lazarenko on the back end, their rookies up front, and Gabby Robbins as well as Sophie Wasasenski, and this is a team that's proven they can shut it down defensively. So you're going to have opportunities in the series. Both teams will. For me, it's crucial for the Avers to take advantage of them early, to put themselves in a position for them to just try to finish the game. But you can't also sit back if you're one of these teams. You need to keep pushing forward. And for the Avers, it's tough, right? Because they win the season series, but playoffs is so different, and this Winnipeg Ice team plays as hard. The only team that plays harder than them in this league from what I've seen, and this is no slight to the Avros. I think the Avros are a close third, but the Winnipeg Ice are a team that just plays so hard, right? And I think with that championship experience and the depth they have, like, this series is going to come down to moments, yes, but just to so many slim factors, as well as goaltending, because the Avros have a top-end goaltending tandem too. So, like, I haven't even made a decision for who I think ends up making it to the finals in this series, because it's so close. As we bring on Can Central Sports cards and memorabilia onto the screen, about moments like I've been talking about. And man, they've burned me in the past when I've chosen them. But I think they do have enough to get it done. In terms of... oh, man. You know what? Oh, this is like, I want to flip a coin, to be honest with you, because this is a difficult choice. Like, both teams are very well built. I think it could go either way. You know what? I bet on them before and they burnt me in the past. I'm not going to do it again. I think that there's going to be some heartbreak again for the Winnipeg Avers this season. I think that the Winnipeg Ice they just, I think, have all the qualities of a team to get back to a championship series. I think that throughout this season, even though they end off the regular season, poorly in that last week, like, betting against them in the past has always turned out to, cost me. And I think that, like, this Winnipeg Ice team has enough experience and has enough talent to be able to get through to another final. I think in this series against the Winnipeg Avers, we're going to see them kick it up another notch in their game. I think that they're going to be able to survive the waves and the attack of the Winnipeg Avers early. And I think that, what it's going to come down to is just the defense playing out a bit better in the Winnipeg Ice's end throughout this series compared to the Winnipeg Avros. From what I saw, the Winnipeg Avros had a bit more cracks in their defensive game from the recent defensive games I've seen, and I think in this series, with how effective that Winnipeg Ice attack is and how well they pass the puck around, I think that that's going to play huge in this series. And I just feel like they just got a bit more experience of winning these meaningful games more recently against the Winnipeg Avros, And I know I said, like, past experiences don't matter, but they do, to be honest with you, in ways about the body of work, in this case, that the Winnipeg Ice have built up. And, I believe that Winnipeg, they go back to what would be technically a 5th, 6th straight championship. Incredible run it would be for them if they're able to keep it up. We're going to take one last commercial break, another transition to come up here, but we're going to get into the finals, and we're going to get into who I believe is going to hoist this year's MFHL championship. Will it be the Winnipeg Ice who three-peat, or will it be the Eastman Selects who complete their greatest season in franchise history and win their second ever title? That coming up next year on the MFHL podcast, the 2025 playoff special. Thanks for sticking with us if you still are, everybody.
Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. Mick Fasteners and Tools has been the place to shop for your industrial needs for over 20 years. Carrying the tools you need to get the job done from the brands you can trust, Mick Fasteners and Tools has you covered. Brands like Milwaukee Tool, established in 1924 and on display in our Milwaukee Red Zone, the largest red zone in Winnipeg. With construction workers and tradespeople in mind, Mick Fasteners and Tools is your one-stop shop for all your industrial needs. So come on down to our Winnipeg store location today, located on 1557 King Edward Street in Winnipeg, Manitoba.
And welcome back, everybody, into the 2025 playoff special for the MFHL podcast, brought to you by Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Mick Fasteners and Tools, Terrico, and Goaltenders. Super Sunday continuing here on the network. Going to be pushing back the Manitoba Hockey Podcast. It's supposed to air at 5. This one's been running long, but there's been a lot to talk about previewing these matchups. It's not as simple as going through each series a few minutes at a time, So, yeah, hard decision I made. I think that the Ice just edged out the Winnipeg Avros in what I think would be 5 games. I think they take it in 5 games. I think it would be a hard-fought 5 games, and I think that, any team can take it, to be honest with you. Like, I was torn, as you just saw. I think that the Ice just have enough to get by to another final, as they'd be facing off against who I think would be the Eastman Selects. Eastman would be coming into the series after beating the Lightning and Chiefs, if my prediction holds up, and the Ice after going through the Hawks and Avros. In terms of the road both these teams have to take to the finals, like it's always tough no matter what in the MFHL. We've seen in the past, right, upsets happen in the first round. I don't think any happened this year, but you never know. But I think both of these teams, the Ice may be a bit more battle-tested heading into the series against the Eastman Selects, where I think for Eastman, like, this is the one matchup that they've struggled with this year in the league for one reason or another. And I think the biggest reason, just in watching the games, is they are mirror images of each other, these two teams. And I think for the Eastman Selects, as good as their defense has been, Eugene Kaminsky has kind of cracked the code on the best way to beat this Eastman Selects team, which is winning races to puck battles or creating really effective pressure on the Eastman Selects D when they're going to retrieve pucks. And I mean, we saw it play out perfectly in 2 OT wins for this Winnipeg Ice team, and they found ways to shut down the Eastman Selects offense, which I guess both teams had low scoring outputs in their matchups leading up to that season series finale. But Winnipeg just found ways to neutralize this Eastman team and to capitalize on their opportunities, which some even came on the rush, which Eastman is very good at defending. So I think that Winnipeg's been their kryptonite this season, right? The Ice have for Eastman, and I think every great team, if you want to be great, you need to beat the best to be the best. And I think, in my opinion, in a lot of these teams' eyes, like, the Winnipeg Ice are still here, right? And that's the team that's been the standard. And I think for the Eastman Selects to get that opportunity to go up against a team that has owned them in the season series this year, at 3-1 in close games, I think that it's going to create something really special for us to behold and for us to see in this year's championship series. I think for the Winnipeg Ice, like, this is a team that's just been building towards getting better as this season went along, and are at this point now where they had a hiccup in their final weekend of the year, but finished the season really strongly for the most part, capturing a tournament title at the Female World Sports Goal Challenge, a tournament where the Eastman Selects weren't present. Eastman ended up having tournament success this year too, right? And both these teams, I feel like, have been on a collision course all season long to meeting in a meaningful series. What's this series going to come down to? Well, I think much like, the key to the Winnipeg Avros having success against the Winnipeg Ice in that semifinals matchup, like, you need to make the most of your opportunities and capitalize on them. And, we've seen when Eastman has struggled this season, that offense that has run dry, right? Same with this Winnipeg Ice team, and I think what's going to be the most important part is going to be truly how these teams are able to win their puck battles on the forecheck and how they're able to get their cycles going. These are two of the top teams in the league in terms of when it comes to the cycle, right? The relentless forecheck, the pressure that Eastman plays with has been a lot for teams to handle this season that they haven't really been able to handle. But the Ice have been able to find answers to containing them in the past, few games of their season series, right, down the line. And I think another interesting part of this series, what's going to be huge, is which team can continue to be more disciplined than the other. For the Winnipeg Ice, they ended up being a top two most disciplined team in the league this year in terms of taking the top two least penalty minutes in the league. Them and the Eastman Selects were top two in that category. Pull that up. Yeah, Winnipeg have the least penalty minutes in the league this year at 170 and Eastman at 200. So it's going to be a series of discipline. Whichever team can win on the cycle more frequently in this series, more effectively as it goes along, is going to be having the biggest advantage or one of the biggest advantages, as well as which team can capitalize more. And I think for Eastman, what's different about them this year compared to other years is they have more top end talent. I think that was their biggest disadvantage last season, is they were playing the right way, they were able to take down top end teams, but they didn't have the top end talent to carry them through against a team like the Westman Wildcats in that semifinal series. They have that this season. It's just about, can the Winnipeg Ice end up getting the stops like they have against the top teams and when they've had success against them this season? I'm not so sure they will. I think that is good, and as much top end talent that this Winnipeg Ice team has, as they're led by Izzy Mann. The rookies they have up front have been great. Their D-core is very strong. Their goaltending's been excellent. I just think there's something about this Eastman Selects team, ladies and gentlemen, that is different compared to other years from that franchise. Like back in 2017-18, when this franchise ended up winning their first championship ever, it was Reagan Kirk who led the way in net and really carried this team, backstopped them to that championship. They have goaltenders in Isabelle Labossiere and Addison Tomes who could very well do that, as Tomes is back healthy in the lineup as she was warming up in the final game of the season. But the thing that's different about this Eastman Selects team is how they play defense in front of their goaltending, which has never been seen before for this franchise, and if not ever in MFHL history, how cohesive and how sound this team plays. Making offensive possessions tough on every single opponent for them to capitalize, fighting for every inch. But this is a team that has taken a lot of strides and has so much offensive talent and depth this season, and has also gotten it from the back end, and Vader Rigo leading the team in points, as already mentioned. I think putting all those pieces together and learning from their previous matchups against the Winnipeg Ice, I think that this Eastman Selects team just has something about them this season that I think that they're going to find another year in the finals. And I know I said it's bad betting against the Winnipeg Ice, but I do think that Eastman defense wins championships, and they've been the best defensive team in the MFHL this season, historically great. I think the offense carries through for them, and they're able to step up in key moments, and I think they will beat the Winnipeg Ice on home ice in Game 5 in Niverville to move on to the West Regionals and claim their second title in franchise history. I think the MVP of these playoffs is going to be Veda Rigo. I think she's going to be a monster on the back end, and I think that she is going to be the most impactful player throughout this series, in the finals, and throughout the three that Eastman would play in for this team. I think that, the biggest advantage Winnipeg has is the top-end talent, but I look at Eastman, the players they have, Veda Rigo, her twin sister Delaney Rigo, Sophia Heidinger, Danielle Hepner, even a player like Maya Grenier, who's shown she can step up, Isabelle Carrier, also taking a look at a player like Callie Remillard, and who can forget about Shan Scott Cook, who might be their most reliable forward. So I think Eastman has the horses to take down the Winnipeg Ice and to end their reign, and I think it happens this postseason, where Eastman would be going to Saskatchewan if that would happen, if they end up becoming champions, to take on the champions of the Saskatchewan Female U18 AAA Hockey League, coming up in the first week of April at the West Regionals, to see who goes to the Esso Cup. Playoffs starting this week, coming up on Tuesday night in Winnipeg as the Ice take on the Pembina Valley Hawks. Coverage will get going on GShow Productions just before that matchup at about 8 o'clock p.m. from the Hockey for All Center, or the Hockey for Life Center, as I've seen it called in other places. That'll do it for this edition of the MFHL podcast, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the MFHL playoff special. Check out our website, GShow Productions, starting tomorrow, as we'll have our full playoff schedule out for round 1 this year in the MFHL. Exciting, 8 great teams taking on each other. Well, taking on certain teams out of the 8 throughout these 4 playoff series. Can't wait for it. Check out the full schedule at MFHLU18AAA.com. Thank you to Mid-Canton Fasteners and Tools, Terraco Goaltenders, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia for sponsoring another edition of this MFHL podcast, the 2025 playoff special. It's been a fun one, everybody. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe, turn on notifications, leave a like if you did. And just helps support the channel. But if you ended up tuning in until the very end here, we appreciate that as well. We'll see y'all. If you're tuning in to playoff hockey, you won't want to miss it. We'll see y'all on Tuesday night, everybody, at the Hockey for All Center for Ice versus Hawks. Should be a dandy. And for the next MFHL podcast episode, that'll be coming out next Friday. Take care, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday, and thank you for joining us here on our longest MFHL podcast episode ever. It was worth it, though, for the 2025 playoff special. Take care, everybody. So long.